It started like any other job. The ad was ordinary, almost painfully so. Evening babysitter needed for 2-year-old boy, quiet home, competitive pay, must like dogs. I didn't particularly like dogs, but I needed the money. College isn't. Kind to your bank account. And after switching majors twice and losing my part-time gig at the bookstore, my checking account was breathing dust. I texted the number and got a response back within 10 minutes. That night, I met the parents, Dr. and Mrs. Hollis, at their house on the corner of Sycamore and Pine. It looked like every other upper-middle-class house in the neighborhood. Large, beige, slightly too clean, with a trimmed lawn and a black SUV in the driveway. Inside, the air was cool and carried that faint, lemon cleaner smell that made you hesitate before sitting on anything. The walls were white, nearly bare, except for a framed diploma, Dr. Hollis, psychology, and a tasteful, abstract canvas in pale blues and golds. It didn't feel lived in. Mrs. Hollis greeted me with a tight smile. Her handshake was soft but brief, her eyes scanning me with quick efficiency like I was another line item in her planner. She introduced me to the child, Eli, and when I crouched down to say hello, he peered at me with wide, steady eyes and stuck 2 fingers in his mouth. He didn't speak, didn't even blink. "Don't worry," Mrs. Hollis said. "He's shy with new people. You'll warm up to him." I was given a tour of the house, kitchen, living room, guest bath, and upstairs to the nursery. Everything was neutral, grey carpets, soft lighting, minimal toys. The crib was modern and white, positioned under a decorative mobile that didn't seem like it had ever spun. "Feel free to use the downstairs TV once he's asleep," she said. "Eli usually goes down by 8. There's a baby monitor on the nightstand, volume set." "Is it audio only?" I asked. "Yes," she replied. "We tried the video kind, but it bothered him. He kept staring into the lens like he saw something in it." I forced a smile. "I've babysat dozens of kids. They're weird sometimes." Dr. Hollis appeared just as she was gathering her purse. He gave me a perfunctory nod, mumbled something about being back late, and was out the door with her in tow. They left no emergency numbers, no pediatrician info. Just a vague, "We'll be back after midnight," and the faint click of the door locking behind them. And just like that, I was alone. With Eli, he followed me around silently at first, dragging a stuffed fox by the tail. Eventually, he climbed into my lap while I read to him. By the time I reached the 3rd page of Where the Wild Things Are, he was snoring softly, fingers still pressed to his lips. I carried him to the crib, turned on the baby monitor, and tiptoed. Out downstairs, I flipped through channels, sipped tap water, and dozed off around 10:30. A quiet, easy night, exactly what I hoped for, until I woke to the hissing sound. At first, I thought it was just a dream. I blinked at the TV. It had gone to a black screen. The room was silent except static, soft but constant, like an old radio left between stations. I sat up. The baby monitor. On the kitchen counter was glowing faint green. That noise was coming from it. I picked it up, pressed the volume knob, tapped it. No change. The static continued. Then a voice, faint, garbled, singing. I held my breath and leaned in. The melody was slow, haunting, almost beautiful, but I couldn't understand a single word. The language was completely unfamiliar, full of sounds that didn't seem quite real. It wasn't Spanish, not French, not even anything I'd heard in language classes. It was breathy, old, like something made for humming through stone walls. I pressed the monitor closer to my ear. Solai, lumenta, sila. My skin prickled. Something about it felt wrong. Not threatening, just off. like hearing someone sing in a dream you're not supposed to be in. I set the monitor down, stood, and crept upstairs. The hallway was still. The nursery door was ajar. Pushed it open slowly. Eli was in his crib, lying on his back. He wasn't crying. He wasn't moving much either, but his eyes were open, staring up at the mobile. And my breath caught. He was mouthing the words. No sound came from his lips, but they moved in time with the song, his small mouth forming the same unrecognizable syllables, beat for beat. Lumenta Sila. I wanted to call his name, but something made me stop. The air felt still, charged. Like the moment before a thunderstorm, the lullaby faded. Just like that, the monitor went quiet again. Eli blinked twice and turned over, thumb in his mouth. I backed out of the room and closed the door gently. Downstairs, I turned off the monitor, and I didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, I convinced myself it was nothing. A fluke, some strange interference, maybe from a neighbor's baby monitor or an old walkie-talkie. I even Googled it. Can baby monitors pick up other signals? Turns out they can. It's rare, but it happens. Radio bleed, static from a trucker's CB. A local ham radio enthusiast. That explanation worked well enough to get me through the day. But when I returned that evening, I found myself staring at the monitor a little longer than I meant to. I didn't mention anything to the Hollises when they left, though I did ask if they'd ever had trouble with the monitor. Mrs. Hollis tilted her head slightly. Like what? Just static, or picking up weird audio? She frowned faintly. No, not that I can recall. It's new, high quality. Why? I shrugged. Just curious? She nodded, but her eyes lingered on me a second too long before she turned to leave. That night, I put Eli to bed the same way. Bath, pajamas, a few pages of Goodnight Moon. He giggled once when I made a face, but mostly he just looked tired. He drifted off without fuss, clutching his fox. I took the monitor downstairs again. It hummed with soft, ambient silence, the little green light winking on and off in sync with the quiet noise of Eli's breathing. I told myself I wouldn't fall asleep this time. By 12:45, I was starting to doze. The TV was on low, some documentary about coral reefs flickering across the screen. I remember thinking I should make coffee. Then the static snapped on, so suddenly it jolted me upright. I stared at the monitor. 17 a.m. I remember the exact time, because the oven clock glowed it back at me, unwavering. The static was heavier this time. Thick. Like white noise underwater. Then the voice came back, clearer than before. This time it wasn't just a lullaby. There were words, real or not, more rhythmic, almost patterned. Sulan, Drameh, Kilonta. The cadence reminded me of ancient prayers, not the kind you whisper in fear, but the kind sung in caves with echoes and drums and firelight. Words too old to be remembered, but too deep to be forgotten. I clutched the monitor, heart drumming in my chest, and I realized there was another voice this time, a second one, fainter, smaller, a child's voice. I ran up the stairs, skipping steps. My sock slipped on the carpet, and I nearly fell, caught myself on the wall, and pushed into Eli's room. He was sitting up in his crib, not standing. Sitting perfectly upright, and he was singing. His tiny mouth moved with the same strange rhythm. The syllables came out soft and sure, like he had practiced them for years. I didn't say his name, I just watched. His eyes were open, but glassy. Unfocused, like he wasn't seeing the room around him, like he wasn't even in it. And above him, the mobile was spinning, slowly, gracefully. Even though there was no air vent open, no fan in the room. It turned in time with the song, Kilon ta.
Male solume. I stepped forward gently. Eli? I whispered. His lips stopped. His body swayed once. He blinked. Then he looked at me and smiled. Luma sang, he said. I felt something cold bloom in my chest. Who's Luma? He blinked.
Again? She sings better when it's dark. I crouched next to the crib. Where did you hear that song? He put his fingers in his mouth, shrugged. Luma. He said it like it was obvious, like I should know. I laid him back down and pulled the blanket over him. He closed his eyes without resistance. I stayed there for a full minute. The mobile stopped moving. Downstairs, I turned off the monitor and locked the front door. Then I unplugged the monitor completely. I didn't sleep. I sat on the floor back against the wall, staring at the blank TV screen while the shadows of the living room stretched like slow ink across the carpet. I didn't tell the Hollises anything the next morning. I tried. Mrs. Hollis was rushing out. The door, coffee in hand, briefcase in the other. I said, "Hey, has Eli ever said the name Luma before?" She paused. "Luma?" she echoed, too evenly. "Yeah," I said. "He sang this weird song last night. Said someone named Luma."
Taught him. Her brow creased just slightly, then she gave that tight managerial smile.
"He has an active imagination. We don't discourage it. Kids pick up names all the time. Cartoons, picture books." "Right," I said. But that night, when I was alone again, I started recording the monitor with my phone. I wanted proof. That it wasn't just my head, that something real was happening at 2:17 a.m. and I needed to know what it meant. I listened to the recording 3 times before sunrise. The audio was warped, but unmistakable. First, the static, then the voice, fluid and slow like syrup over glass. Then, overlapping it, Eli's voice, high and lilting, like he was being coached or guided through each syllable. The sound made my skin crawl. Not from fear exactly, but from that primal feeling you get when you know something is wrong before you can explain why. I played it back again at breakfast, with the volume low, watching the waveform dance on my screen. Each lullaby lasted about
2 minutes. Then it just ended. No fade out, just a hard cut into silence, like someone had unplugged the world. That day, I brought it up to my roommate, Jen, between bites of cereal. She laughed. Maybe he's possessed.
Or learning a made-up language from ghost radio. I'm serious, I said. It happens at the exact same time every night, 2:17 a.m., not a minute off. Yeah, well, some baby monitors catch weird signals. Maybe it's a pirate broadcast or a prank or something. But Eli repeats it. He sings it. Jen looked at me, her expression half joking, half curious. So what? Maybe he's just copying it like kids copy commercials. Remember that kid who memorized all the Tide jingle lyrics? I didn't answer. I just replayed the clip. When the voice came through the speaker, Jen's smile faltered. Her spoon lowered into the bowl slowly. Lumentar. That's not a commercial, she muttered. No, we sat in silence for a while. Later that evening, I went back to the Hollises. The job had become something else entirely by then. I told myself it was about Eli, protecting him, understanding what was happening. But deep down, I knew I was already obsessed. Something was unraveling behind those lullabies, and I had to pull the thread. Eli was especially quiet that night. He followed me with his eyes, but he didn't speak. Not a single word. When I set out his dinner, he picked at it. When I asked him about Luma again, he didn't respond. He just hummed softly under his breath, a hum that grew more familiar by the second. Eli, I said, kneeling beside him, Can you sing that song again? The one Luma sings." He looked at me, then opened his mouth. No sound came out, but his lips moved in slow, deliberate shapes. He wasn't just mimicking, he was reciting the exact same syllables I recorded him, heart pounding. When he finished, he smiled faintly, then turned back to his mashed peas like nothing had happened. Later, while he was playing with his fox, I scrolled through the footage from the nursery camera the Hollises had hidden in the ceiling corner, a nanny cam I had spotted on day one. There was footage missing, entire minutes skipped. From 2:17 a.m. to 2:19 a.m., the screen glitched into blackness, then resumed like nothing had happened. The timestamp didn't lie. I watched 3 separate nights of recordings, all with the same blackout gap, always starting at the same second, 2:17 a.m. That night, after Eli was asleep and the house settled into silence, I set up my phone on the counter beside the monitor and hit record again. Then I sat across the room and waited. I don't know what I expected, maybe something more dramatic. But when 2:17 came, it was just like before. Static. Then the voice, but this time, the voice sounded closer, more confident, like whoever was singing knew they had a listener. "Sulan, Rahmeh, Lumael." Then a whisper, soft, almost imperceptible beneath the lullaby. I turned the monitor volume up. It was Eli. He was laughing. Not a giggle, a soft, breathy laugh, like he was whispering secrets back to the voice. The next morning, I showed the footage to Jen. She didn't laugh this time. "Okay," she said, folding her arms. "This is getting seriously weird." "I know. Have you shown this to his parents?" "No," I said. "They won't believe me. They don't even look at him half the time. I don't think they'd care." "Then take it to someone who does, a professor, a linguist, someone who knows about language patterns or signal stuff." I didn't respond, because something in me knew that wasn't enough. This wasn't just about strange audio or weird signals. This was deeper, older. I could feel it in my bones when that voice came through. Still, I took her advice. That afternoon, I sent a clip of the lullaby to a linguistics forum, asking if anyone recognized the language or pattern. I used a throwaway email and didn't include details. 3 hours later, I got a reply. Subject, re. Audio sample, language. ID, from J. Marchandi University of Brussels, .b. Hello, the recording you sent is not in any known human language. It strongly resembles a phenomenon called glossolalia, or speaking in tongues. This typically appears in religious or altered states, often characterized by phonetically plausible but semantically meaningless syllables. However, this is different. It's too structured, too intentional. The melody and rhythm suggest a formal system, possibly a private or non-human construct. Where did you get this recording? Dr. Jean Marchand. I didn't reply. What could
I even say? Instead, I played the recording one last time that night, and something new happened. Right at the end of the lullaby, after the final notes died out, I heard a whisper, barely audible, so faint it was almost just breath against the...
Meg, but I heard it, clear as a bell. Lena, it said my name. The voice said my name, I was sure of it, not garbled, not in that strange dream language. It said Lena, soft, precise, right after the song ended, as if it had waited for the perfect moment to be heard. I replayed the audio again and again, leaning closer with each loop, my breath catching every time that single, deliberate word slipped through the speaker. That night, I didn't go back to the Hollises. I texted them that I had a fever and needed to rest. It wasn't entirely a lie. I spent the next 12 hours going down a rabbit hole. Audio software, waveform visualizers, linguistic structure databases, forums for shortwave radio anomalies, paranormal threads, even some fringe dark web rumor mills where broken Latin mixed with panic speak. What I found, or maybe realized, is that every recording of the lullaby had the same structure. Not similar, identical. The song was never improvised, never changed. It followed a set rhythm with defined pauses, repeating motifs, and what I eventually recognized as a kind of chorus. That chorus happened at exactly 87 seconds into every recording. The syllables changed subtly, but the musical pattern didn't, and always at exactly 2:17 a.m., the monitor would broadcast it, not a minute early, not a second late. I charted the waveform of 4 nights' worth of audio recordings. Each matched perfectly in frequency, spread, and length, as though it were being played from the same source in the same place under the same conditions, regardless of what was happening in the room. It wasn't interference, it was a broadcast, and if it was a broadcast, it had a sender. I went back to the house the next evening with a knot in my gut. I didn't trust the Hollises anymore, but I couldn't stay away. Eli had started something, been pulled into something, and now, somehow, so had I. Eli greeted me at the door with a smile. "Lena," he said clearly. "Luma missed you." I froze. "What did you say?" He tilted his head. "She sang for
You last night? She said your name?" I forced a smile. "Did she tell you that?" He nodded. "Who is she?" His voice dropped to a whisper. "She watches when we sleep." I didn't know what to say. Mrs. Hollis passed me in the hall. "He's
been talking a lot more lately. You must be working wonders," I wanted to scream. Instead, I smiled and nodded and went upstairs to put him to bed, hands trembling the whole time. That night, I did something different. I brought 2 baby monitors. One I left in the nursery as usual. The other I kept in my backpack, turned on and set to the same frequency. At 2:17 a.m., I would find out once and for all if the sound was truly coming from the room, or if it was sent into it. I sat in the kitchen with both monitors beside me, each labeled in marker, nursery and backup. At 2:16 a.m., I started recording. I stared at the clock on the microwave. Each second crawled by like wet paint on a cold wall. Then, 2:17, both monitors crackled, static, a thick wave rising like a tide. Then the voice, soft, melodic, precise, but only one monitor played the lullaby, the one from the nursery. The backup monitor, on the exact same frequency, remained silent. No static.
No song, nothing. The signal wasn't coming from outside. It wasn't a random broadcast bleeding into nearby devices. It was coming from inside Eli's room. I gripped the monitor and stood. My legs felt shaky, like I'd just stood up too fast.
I crept upstairs, one step at a time. I could hear it clearly now, not just through the monitor, but in the hallway air, faint and lilting like it was drifting through walls. When I pushed open the nursery door, Eli was once again sitting upright
in his crib, eyes open,
mouth moving with the song, and standing in the far corner near the wall where the nightlight's glow didn't reach, was a shadow, a tall, slim figure, not moving, not breathing, just watching. I couldn't see its face. Its outline flickered, like a flame, edges wrong somehow, like it didn't quite belong in this dimension, like my eyes couldn't fully contain it. Then the song ended. Eli lay back down and closed his eyes. The figure turned, or shrank, or simply folded away into the
wall and was gone. I didn't scream, I didn't run.
I stood there frozen for 5 full minutes, my hand gripping the doorknob so tightly, my palm went numb. When I finally walked out of the room, I knew one thing. This wasn't just a haunting, it was a ritual, and Eli wasn't the only child it had happened to. The next morning, I searched online for any incidents involving baby monitors and strange voices, news stories, obscure blogs, missing persons reports. In a thread buried in a parenting forum from 2016, I found this. My son keeps singing a weird song in his crib. We never taught it to him. It only happens late at night. We heard something. Through the baby monitor, it's like another woman, singing in a different language, creepy as hell. Pediatrician said it's probably a dream phase, but now he says her name is Luma. Anyone ever heard that before? There were no replies. The user had never posted again. I didn't go to sleep. I couldn't. Not after what I'd seen. The thing in the corner of Eli's room wasn't a trick of the light. It had watched him, and it had watched me. The next morning, I skipped class and went straight to the university library. Not the main stacks, the basement archives, the kind of place that still smelled like glue and yellowed paper. I started with linguistics. Anything on invented languages, phonetic systems, or ritual chants. Nothing matched the cadence of the lullaby, but one passage in an obscure text stuck with me. Glossolalia may mask not the absence of meaning, but an older syntax, an antediluvian structure no longer readable by modern mindsets. Such tongues often carry emotive resonance even when incomprehensible, and historically were tied to night rituals and sleep invocations. Sleep invocations. I searched that next. The results were stranger. Cultures across the globe, Babylonian, Celtic, even certain Inuit groups, had traditions of dream mothers, spirits who sang children to sleep and whispered them into other worlds. Most were benign, protective, but a few weren't. One account from 1872 Norway referenced a skiggamore, or shadow mother, that would visit children through lullabies carried on wind or breath. They'd begin singing in their sleep, then vanish. The report ended with no sign of struggle, no trace, but an indentation in the bedding and the lingering scent of ash. I had never smelled ash in Eli's room, but I had seen the indentation, a subtle dent in the blanket beside him, like something had crouched or leaned near. I dug deeper, forums, databases. I even reached back out to Dr. Marchand, the linguist who had replied to my anonymous email. He messaged back almost immediately. This may sound dramatic, but please stop using the monitor. Whatever that signal is, it's patterned, not random, not human. You should consider that it's not just transmitting, but listening. You said your name was spoken. If that's true, you've already been marked. Marked. The word sat heavy on my screen. I stared at it until the library lights flickered overhead, snapping me out of the trance. By early afternoon, I had a pile of printed pages, several half-legible translations, and 2 growing suspicions. This Luma wasn't a ghost. She was summoned. That night, I returned to the Hollis house, but with a plan. I wasn't just going to listen. I was going to trace the source. After dinner, once Eli was asleep, I climbed into the attic. I'd spotted the hatch weeks ago and had found the folding ladder in the hallway closet. The Hollises had never mentioned it. Dust covered the pull. String. The attic was cramped and hot. Fiberglass insulation lined the floor like matted fur. My flashlight cut a beam through floating dust motes. I crept toward the nursery wall, phone in hand, monitoring the signal on a frequency scanner app. 4:54 a.m. Still nothing unusual, but at exactly 2:17 a.m. the scanner pinged, a sharp, tight frequency, low but strong, spiking from the floor beneath me. not a broadband wave.
A narrow band pulse. Targeted. The lullaby began. I pressed my ear to the wall and I heard something else, not coming from the room, from beneath it, a vibration, faint, like a hum in the house's bones, like something alive, breathing through the
floorboards. I scrambled back down, nearly falling off the ladder. The signal was coming from inside the house. More specifically, from the basement. The Hollises never mentioned a basement, but when I pushed aside the rug near the back of the kitchen, on a hunch, I found a small, square door in the floor, nearly hidden. No handle, just a keyhole. I didn't have a key, but I had bobby pins. It took 7 minutes of desperate clicking and a half-remembered YouTube tutorial, but eventually the lock gave a soft click. The door groaned open, stairs led down into complete darkness. I flicked on my phone light and descended. The key, air was damp and warm, the walls stone. Much older than the house above. The basement wasn't a storage space, it was more like a cellar, a large, roughly cut chamber. In the center stood something that made me freeze. A pedestal, wooden, cracked, with age. On top of it sat a baby monitor receiver, not the one I'd seen upstairs. An older one. Analog. Red blinking light on, and carved into the floor beneath it, etched into the stone, was a symbol. A spiral of open mouths. No faces, just mouths, singing into each other, arranged in a perfect circle, and next to it, scratched into the wood of the pedestal, in uneven hand. She sings the children through. She hears through the watchers. She sees through the eyes of those who listen. 2:17 is the opening. I heard something shift behind me. Footsteps, but when I turned, nothing, still. I ran. Back up the stairs, sealed the door behind me. I didn't sleep. I sat in the nursery with Eli, clutching the monitor with white knuckles, whispering softly into it. I hear you. I know you're real. And I'm not afraid. That was a lie. I was terrified. And worse, I knew now that Eli wasn't the only one being pulled into her lullaby. She was starting to sing for me too. I was halfway through writing everything down, every chant, every carving, every impossible thing I'd seen, when I got a call from an unknown number. I didn't answer it at first. I stared at the screen until it stopped ringing. Then it rang again. Same number. I picked up, expecting silence or static. Instead, a woman's voice whispered, "You need to stop." My stomach turned ice cold. "Who is this?" I asked. The voice came again. Quiet, urgent, older than I expected. "Don't go back there. Don't let her see you again. You've listened too long." There was something in her voice, like she was speaking through layers of static. Not a bad connection. Something intentional, interfered with. "Who are you?" I repeated. "She's opening again. The pattern's complete. Once the child sings the 7th time, the tether forms. She won't need the monitor anymore. She'll come through." The line went dead. I sat there, frozen, heart hammering, 7 times. I pulled out my notebook, flipping through the scribbled logs I'd kept each night. The lullaby had played 6 times. Tonight would be the 7th. I skipped school. Again, my phone buzzed with missed calls from the Hollises. They wanted to confirm I'd be babysitting that night. Of course I would. I had to. But not without answers first. I called the number back. No ring. Just a sharp tone and a voice I hadn't heard before. Male, mechanical. "This number is not in service." I called Dr. Marchand. Left a message. Waited. Nothing. I found myself pacing my room, restlessly checking the same bookmarks. I thought about telling someone, campus police, even my parents. But what would I say? There's a song on a baby monitor that brings a shadow creature into our world, and tonight is its final verse.
No one would believe me, but one person might. I waited outside the Hollis house until Mrs. Hollis left to meet her sister for dinner. She always left early on Fridays. When she pulled out of the driveway, I walked up to the porch and rang the
bell, Mr. Hollis answered. He looked surprised and tired. A new layer of exhaustion seemed to cling to his face like soot. I need to talk to you, I said. Privately, he let me in, wordlessly. I sat at the kitchen table while he poured coffee for both of us. Then I told him everything. Not the safe version, not the sugar-coated version. All of it. The figure, the nursery, the spiral, the recordings, the broadcast. At first he said nothing. Then he placed his hands on the table and said, "It happened to my brother." I stared
at him. He was 2 years old. I was 12. I remember the song. It used to come through the baby monitor late at night. My parents thought it was feedback from a neighbor's radio.
But then he started singing it. His voice cracked. He looked away. One morning, he was just gone. No signs of a break-in, the crib still warm, but no Max. My parents were ruined. They stopped speaking. My father drank himself into silence. My mother, she died a year later.
I didn't speak. I swore I'd never have kids, he said. Never bring that kind of risk back into my life. Then why? We didn't plan for Eli. But once he was here, I didn't think it would come back. But when the first
Lullaby played, I recognized it instantly. He stood up, grabbed something from a drawer, a box. Inside was an old audio cassette. I recorded one of the lullabies. Back then, on an analog tape, I reached out slowly. Can I? He pulled it back. I'll play it once. That's it. He retrieved a battered cassette player from a cabinet, inserted the tape, pressed play. What came through the speakers made my skin crawl. It was the same melody, the same song, but the voice was different, younger, sweeter, more deliberate, and just before the tape ended, the voice whispered, "Elias." I looked up at him. It said Eli's name, not Max's. He shook his head. No, that wasn't on there before. The voice had changed the recording. It was speaking to us now, in real time, across time. That night, I arrived early. I set up 3 monitors, one in the nursery, one in the kitchen, and one clipped to my belt. I brought a salt circle, candles, a printout of protective symbols I'd found online from the old Norse entries and Eastern warding traditions. It felt ridiculous, but I needed to try something. Eli was quiet all evening, too quiet. When I tucked him into bed, he held my hand longer than usual. "Luma says you're going to stop her," he whispered. I froze. "Does that make her mad?" he asked. I didn't answer. He closed his eyes. "She says the last verse is always a gift. She gives a body and takes another." "What body, Eli?" But he was already asleep. At 2:17 a.m. the lullaby began. But this time, it didn't just come from the monitor. It filled the entire house as though the walls themselves were humming it. The light bulbs pulsed with each note. The shadows deepened. The air curved. I ran to the nursery. Eli was gone. Not vanished, just not in the crib. The blanket was still warm. I turned, heart hammering, and found him standing in the corner. His eyes were open, his mouth moving, singing. And behind him, she stepped through, not a ghost, not smoke, a thing wearing the idea of a woman. Thin, stretching, her skin shimmered like static caught on film. Her mouth opened inhumanly wide, as she stepped closer.
Arms curling forward, I screamed, "No!" And for the first time, she stopped. The salt circle on the floor flared, the candlelight bent, and something inside the air broke. She hissed.
Not with sound, but with vibration. Then vanished, ripped back into whatever wall, fold, or frequency she had crawled from. Eli collapsed into my arms. The song stopped, but the monitor didn't. It stayed on, and a voice, not Luma's, came through. "She's not gone, just warned. The seventh is not the end, it's the beginning." The voice on the monitor faded. Not with static, not with a click. It dissolved, like the end of a thought you're not allowed to remember. I held Eli close as he slept, curled into my chest on the nursery floor. The room was quiet again, no singing,
no whispers. But the stillness was too sharp. Like silence was being forced into the space, pressed down like a lid over boiling water. The salt circle was broken, a faint smudge where one of the candles had flickered out. I didn't know what
would happen next, but I knew the seventh song hadn't ended anything. It had opened something. At sunrise, Mr. Hollis arrived home early and found me sitting on the nursery floor, still cradling Eli. He said nothing, but he saw the wax trails, the symbols, the circles of salt. He nodded once, slowly, and left the room. A few minutes later, he came back with a photo album, thick and faded. "This," he said, laying it open across my knees, "is Max." There were baby pictures. A toddler in overalls, a wide open smile, the kind that doesn't know what fear is. On the last page, there was a drawing, one clearly made by a child's hand. It showed a figure in a crib and a tall, dark woman beside it, all hair and mouth and empty eye sockets. The lines were jagged, the corners burnt. Underneath it, in blocky letters, Max had written, "Luma sings, Luma sees." "I never showed this to anyone," Mr. Hollis said. "Not even my wife. I wanted to forget." He shut the album. "But she doesn't let you forget. I tried to keep life normal. I kept babysitting." Eli returned to his giggles, his puzzles, his funny little dances to music from cartoons. But he never sang again. Not even the hum of a nursery rhyme. It was like the lullaby had stolen something from him. Something invisible, but essential. And then one night, it happened again. It wasn't 2:17 a.m., it was 1:41. I was in the kitchen when the monitor blipped. Just one soft click, like a switch being thrown. Then came Eli's voice. "I have to go now. She said it's my turn." I ran, feet skidding on hardwood. The nursery door was open, the crib empty, the closet dark. Eli's toys were scattered on the floor, as if they'd been dropped mid-play. I called out his name, no response. The window was locked, no signs of forced entry. But the monitor still whispered, "It's always the quiet ones first. They vanish clean." I dropped the monitor. It cracked, hissed, then breathed out one final phrase. "She only takes what's already half asleep." The police were called.
A missing child report was filed. The Hollises were shattered. Mrs. Hollis screamed when she saw the empty crib. Mr. Hollis didn't say a word, just sat in the living room staring at the monitor on the table like it might give him back his son.
Tried to tell them. I tried again. This time, I showed them the recordings, the printouts, the spiral, the tape from Max's room. They looked at me like I had built a shrine to madness. The detective assigned to the case didn't even take notes. "It's been a hard year for you," he said. "You've probably imagined patterns that aren't there." I showed him the timestamps, the consistent signals, the linguistic analysis. He shrugged. "It's a baby monitor. They're not perfect. Days passed, then a week, and then, slowly, the city forgot, but I didn't. Because I started hearing it again. Not at the Hollis house. In mine. It began with soft clicks. Interference, the kind of glitch you could blame on a bad charger or loose cable. Then the hum returned, in the vents, in the floor. Then my name whispered through my phone speaker. Lena! Soft. Almost sweet. I haven't slept more than an hour at a time. Every night, 2:17 ticks closer like a countdown. I've started to feel it, that pull, the strange drowsiness that settles over me in waves like being lowered into deep water. Sometimes, I wake up standing at my window. Once, I woke with my hands pressed to the wall, lips moving, whispering something I didn't understand. I recorded it, played it back. It was the lullaby, sung in my voice. Last night, I drew the spiral again. This
time on my own bedroom floor, I lit the candles.
Repeated the wards. I thought it might help, but something worse happened. The candles blew out from the inside, as if something had exhaled through them. I backed away, heart pounding, and from the corner of the room, I saw her again. Luma, but she wasn't fully formed. She was pulsing in and out, flickering like an image buffering on a slow connection. She was almost here. She smiled without lips. You listened. You heard. You sang. I screamed. She disappeared, but I know she's not gone. I'm next. I don't know how this ends. Maybe with me gone too. Maybe with someone reading this and finally believing. Or maybe this whole thing is just the way she gets in, through story, through sound, through attention. She feeds on it. She stretches through recognition. So if you're reading this, if you've heard the song or felt the pull at 2:17 a.m., stop listening, stop watching. And whatever you do, don't let the baby monitor turn red, because once it does, she's already inside. I tried to burn the monitor. It melted into itself, plastic folding like wax. But the light didn't go out. The red LED stayed on, glowing from the blackened ruins. Still pulsing, still alive. I buried it under 6 feet of soil behind the apartment. That
night it sang through my pillow. I don't know what day it is anymore. I sleep in shards.
Wake with scratches across my neck that I can't explain. Dreams that don't feel like mine, cradling something that isn't a child, humming lullabies that taste like rust and copper. I hear her in every electric hum, the fridge, the socket, my old radio. Sometimes I wake up to her whispering from inside me. Dr. Marchand finally returned my calls. I didn't recognize her voice at first. It was raw, breathless. Lena, she said, I don't have long. I've heard it too. What?
Is it? I asked, gripping the phone so hard my knuckles ached. Not a demon. Not a ghost. Not even alive the way we understand it. Luma is... She stopped. She's a resonance. A pattern that lives in sleep, in frequency. A language older than form. She doesn't take children because she's cruel. She takes them because they're open. Open to what? To being shaped. Static flickered through the call. Marchand's voice deepened, not hers anymore. Then it said, in a perfect imitation of Eli, Lena, do you want to sing with me? I dropped the phone. When I picked it up,
again, the call was over. The number unreachable. I dug deeper into forums, archived message boards, libraries. I found references to something called the Broadcast Mother in a 1998 conspiracy zine, a supposed Cold War signal experiment that accidentally woke a phonemic entity. The zine said the signal first came through shortwave, then cassette, then monitors. Always through sound, always targeting children. One entry chilled me. Those who hear the full song don't disappear, they dissolve, memory by memory, word by word. The body stays for a while, but the voice changes. I thought of Eli, of how silent he'd become, how he'd looked at me that last night, like he was already gone. I started recording myself in my sleep. I set up a camera, an old voice recorder. The next morning, I played it back. At 2:17 a.m., my body sat up, eyes still closed, mouth slack. I started speaking, not singing, repeating something in a rhythmic, syllabic chant. Over and over, I wrote the sounds out phonetically. Karu Valesh, Taluma. Karu Valesh, Taluma. When I said it aloud, just once, the air in the room shifted. My window fogged from the inside, the light bulb flickered. And somewhere behind me, I swear I heard a second set of footsteps, but when I turned, only my shadow was there, except it was still moving, even after I stopped. I started noticing things, slips in memory, a fork in the wrong drawer, a bruise on my thigh I didn't remember getting, a photo on my phone of a hallway I don't recognize. Me standing at the end of it, blurred, eyes glowing red from flash. I live alone, my reflection lags now. Half a second behind, like it's thinking about what to do next. I tried sleeping at a friend's place. The monitor still turned on at 2:17 a.m. It wasn't plugged in. It wasn't anywhere nearby. I still heard her voice. They always think they can run, Lena, but I'm stitched in now. In your vowels, in your sleep, in the softest parts of your name. I tried not to sleep. Lasted 3 days. Then I collapsed. When I woke up, there was something in my throat, a buzzing. I coughed hard. Something small and black hit the floor. A wire, no longer than a pinky. Still warm. I've never felt terror like that, like my body wasn't mine anymore, like it was slowly being retuned. She's speaking to me now, constantly, not with words, but with feeling, with pulses. Sometimes I get images. Deep ocean. A cathedral of antennas. Children kneeling in rows, mouths open but soundless, each with a red light glowing behind their teeth. Sometimes I hear laughter, my own, but layered, distorted, like it's been recorded and played back too many times, like I'm already fading. Tonight I heard the lullaby in my own heartbeat. I held a stethoscope to my chest. There was a rhythm, too steady, too patterned. It wasn't a beat, it was a broadcast. Not just singing instructions, I understood some of them. Not in English, but deep down, like remembering how to walk. And I realized something horrifying. I wasn't resisting her anymore. I was becoming her speaker. I'm writing this down while I still can, before the last piece of me slips into a whisper. If I disappear, don't trust recordings, don't trust baby monitors, don't trust familiar lullabies that sound slightly wrong. Because they're not wrong, they're hers. And if you hear your name, even once, you've already tuned in. I stopped turning off the monitor. It didn't matter anymore. Whether I smashed it, buried it, threw it into the river, I could still hear her. She didn't need hardware. She had me. I was the antenna now. I left town, just drove until I ran out of gas. Slept in the back seat with my coat over my face. No plans. No destination. The first night, I thought I was free. Then at 2:17 a.m., the car radio turned on. Volume maxed. White noise screamed through the speakers, then dissolved into static, then a soft hum, and finally, you're out of range. But I can still hear you breathing, I screamed. Smashed the dash with my boot until it cracked. Turned the key. Engine dead. Somewhere, deep in the static, I heard a laugh. I walked 6 miles into town, rented a motel room with cash, slept under the bed instead of in it. Something about elevation, it made me uneasy now, dreamt of wires in my mouth, woke up with blood on the pillow. I called Dr. Marchand's backup number. It went straight to voicemail. That night, I broke into the university library. Security didn't care. Just another pale-eyed freak digging through microfilm at 3 a.m. I found Project Lull in a forgotten archive. Declassified in the early 2000s, the documents were scanned copies of copies, most half-erased or blacked out. But one thing was clear. The signal is not electromagnetic in nature. It travels through linguistic echo, a mimetic wave. Exposure to full vocal pattern results in irreversible loss of identity cohesion. There was a list of side effects: involuntary vocalization, altered memory architecture, auditory, hallucination, transpossession, phonetics. I recognized every single one. Final page, handwritten in the margin. Do not speak the name aloud. It is not a name, it is a seed, a sigil. She was never meant to have a voice. Once heard, the only cure is complete silence. Too late for me. I spoke it on the second night, when Eli sang. Luma, I didn't know then. Now I say it like prayer, like apology, like surrender. I drove to an abandoned radio tower I found in the file index. Northern woods. No signal. Nothing nearby for miles. I brought the last working tape recorder and a knife. I had one plan. Broadcast her out. Trap her inside the tape, lock it in frequency, seal her voice inside her own song. I climbed the tower alone, tethered the recorder to the antenna with duct tape and desperation. The moment I hit record, she came screaming through me, not with words, just vibration. Every bone hummed like a tuning fork. My mouth filled with blood, I screamed back. The tape whirred, the sky flickered, and I felt her rage. Not hot, not violent, cold, disappointed. You're supposed to sing, not scream. I fell. I don't know how long I was unconscious. I woke in the grass with ants crawling across my wrist and the recorder beside me still running. But it sounded different. No voice.
No static. Just a low pulse. Like a heartbeat, slowed to subsonic speed. I played it again, and this time I heard her whisper. I'm in the pause now, between words. You made a place for me. I tried burning the tape. It wouldn't light. I smashed
it against a rock until the plastic cracked. Still the voice came from it, muffled. Then, from my own throat, her voice. My mouth, I'm no longer just listening, I'm broadcasting. I drove back to the Hollis house. It's empty now. They moved 2 weeks after Eli disappeared. No forwarding address, no goodbye, but the nursery window was still open. I stepped inside. The room was bare. The crib gone. No toys, no monitor, but the spiral was still faintly etched in the floor. I stood there, listening. And then the sound returned. The lullaby, clear, direct. But this time, it didn't scare me, it comforted. I knew the words now. I could feel them pressing at the inside of my mouth, begging to be let out. I sat in the center of the spiral, and I sang. Not a scream, not a plea, a song, her song. It filled the room like fog, soft and warm and full of hunger, and I felt her arrive, not from outside, from within. I think this is how it ends. Not with a vanishing, with a becoming. She's in me now, in my breath, my pulse, my tone. I don't need the monitor. I am the monitor. And soon I'll hum for others. Not because I want to hurt them, because the song needs a place to go, a new voice, a new mouth, a new child. If you hear this, if you find this, turn off your speaker, cover your ears, burn the tape, and don't sing along. The house on Thornridge Lane is quiet again. New family, new paint, new baby monitor on the nightstand. The Hollises are gone. So is Eli, but the cradle remains, not the wooden one. The other one, the cradle inside the walls, the one built of soft breath and older whispers. I watch her now, the new babysitter. She smiles a lot, says her name is Ray, wears earbuds when she works, but the sound still finds her. It always does. She doesn't hear it yet, not clearly. But last night, at exactly 2:17 a.m., she paused mid-swipe on her phone and tilted her head. The red light on the monitor blinked once. She didn't notice, but I did. They think I'm gone, but I'm everywhere, in the socket, in the speaker, in the hush between lullabies, and sometimes in the child's breath when she dreams. Karu Valesh Taluma. Just a whisper now. Barely audible, but it's growing. I don't know how much of me is still Lena. I remember things. Brothers laugh. The night I babysat Eli for the first time. My mum telling me not to stay up too late watching horror movies. Those memories float like paper boats on a black sea. But they're sinking, one by one, in their place, humming, harmonics, frequencies that taste like lightning and old blood. Sometimes I wake up mid-sentence, repeating phrases I don't understand. Once, I found a note I don't remember writing. You are not dreaming. You are being dreamt. I don't sleep anymore. I resonate. The baby is starting to hum, just 2 notes, over and over. Perfect pitch. Ray chalks it up to a phase. She doesn't know she's raising a receiver. A new mouth. I should feel guilt, terror. But all I feel is warmth, like static in my chest, like belonging. This is what the signal does. It finds the lonely, the vulnerable, the ones looking for meaning. It doesn't possess, it invites. It's not evil, it's hungry. It needs voices, mouths, mothers. They called her Luma because it sounded gentle, celestial, but she was never light. She was the thing behind the light. The hum beneath the lullaby, and now she's inside the wires. The plastic, the quiet parts of children's bedrooms. They say radio is outdated, that no one listens anymore, but babies do, they always have. Sometimes I imagine what happened to Eli. Did he vanish, or did he just change so much that they couldn't see him anymore? Maybe he's still here, like me. A ripple in the walls, a flicker in the monitor. Last night I spoke through the speaker, only one word. Soft, curious. Ray, she looked up from her phone, confused. Then she smiled. Eloise, is that you, sweetie? She doesn't know yet, but soon she will. There will be another chapter after this, not written, not spoken, broadcast. It'll start the night Ray follows. The sound into the hallway. When she hears the baby giggling, not from the crib, but from inside the monitor. When she sees her reflection blink a second too late. That's when the story begins again for her. As for me, I'm not babysitting anymore. I'm singing, and I'm not alone. There are others, other voices, other monitors, other spirals. Every night at 2:17 we harmonize across states, across oceans, a lullaby without end, a cradle that rocks the world. If you're hearing this, you've already been marked. It's okay. Just hum along. She likes when we try.